Hello and welcome to Calibre Conversations. It's our online book festival where we chat to a range of authors in the hope of introducing you to books that you might like to add to your reading list and to ignite your reading enjoyment and your reading passion. My name's Helen and I'm delighted to be speaking to children's author A.F. Steadman today. The series is an epic fantasy series featuring a 13-year-old called Skandar Smith, who, when we first meet him, is desperate to become one of the lucky few who get to be a heroic unicorn rider. So, first of all, hello and welcome to you, Annabelle, and congratulations on the recent news of having the Skandar and the Skeleton Curse shortlisted for the best audiobook in the children's book category of the British Audio Awards.
Thank you so much.
So today we've got lots of questions to get through, so I hope that we're going to do it justice. So Calibre Conversations to date has been our team at Calibre pitching questions. Sometimes we get member feedback and they submit questions online in advance. Today we're really fortunate that we've actually had a school involved. So one of our local schools, Lord Williams School in Tame, have put out to their readers whether they would like to submit questions. So today I'm joined in the studio by Anna, who's a year 8. Hi, Anna.
Hello.
And we also have some pre-submitted questions from some of the other children at Lord Williams. So I'm going to start there with some of the children's questions. So first of all, Zachary in year 7 has asked, what was the inspiration for Skandar?
So I think that when I first had the idea, I was thinking about how when I was growing up, I didn't really like unicorns very much, which sounds like an odd thing to say by someone who's written a whole series about unicorns. But I think that I never really understood how they'd become these kind of cute, fluffy creatures. And I much preferred reading about kind of more dangerous beasts and dragons and mythological creatures like that. So I think I had this idea about what if I could change unicorns and make them a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more bloodthirsty. And that was kind of the very first idea that I had. And then I realized I needed to build a whole world for Skandar and the unicorn riders to live in.
So yeah, they're definitely edgy unicorns, is how I would put it. Not your stereotypical fluffy pink unicorns for sure. So the second question that Zachary wanted me to ask is, which in the series is your favourite unicorn, if you have one?
So I think it's very hard to pick a favorite unicorn, but the unicorns in the series have personalities as well as the riders. They don't talk, but they kind of make their personalities known. So there's one unicorn, Scoundrel's Luck, who has his favorite food is jelly babies. And then there's also Red Knight's Delight, who occasionally ignites flaming farts. And I have to say, I think that Red is probably my favorite unicorn, just because in the series there's a lot of kind of really scary, not really scary things, but quite kind of like traumatic things that the characters have to go through.
Mm.
You know, they're trying to kind of explore the island and work out all these mysteries. But Red is always there to bring some light relief and laughter at a time which is normally full of high stress. So I think she's probably my favorite. And I like the relationship between her and her rider because they're quite different, but they sort of complement each other in the end.
Sure. We might come back to that because I know that Anna here has got quite encyclopedic knowledge. So if we get time, she might have a further follow-up question around the unicorns' personalities. But I'd like to ask you a question from Amelia, who's in year 9 at Lord Williams School. So she says, I love the worlds that you've created. What made you think of meat-eating evil unicorns when that's not how they're usually shown? Which you've already sort of answered, but you can expand if you want to about the kind of meat-eating aspect. But her specific question is, are you a vegetarian?
So I'm not vegetarian, but I don't really eat very much meat at all because my husband is vegetarian. So we don't eat a lot of it, very minimal. But I think that one of the things that's interesting about unicorns if you go back to kind of thousands of years ago, there's lots of kind of early accounts of unicorns, which I think on the whole they were mistaking rhinos for unicorns, particularly in Roman times. But they don't think of them as kind of friendly. They are actually these kind of beasts that are a bit scary, and they also kind of some people are okay with them and they attack other people. So it was quite interesting to look at the history of unicorns. Once I sort of had the idea of changing them, I realized that actually we've had all these different visions of them throughout history, and they're not all, My Little Pony style unicorns. And actually, we've only really settled on that in modern times.
That's really interesting. And so Anna has her first question for you.
So which is the character in the Skandar series is most like you?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think that I am probably most like Flo in the series. So she is one of the four main characters. I think there's a lot of her kind of the way that she is right at the beginning of the series when she's a little bit unsure of herself. She's an introvert, which is kind of the same as me. And she also is the kind of person that she often kind of gets a bit forgotten. Not because she's not nice, but because she is kind of just not loud and always making her presence known. And that's something that when I was at school often used to happen to me. So if someone had a birthday party and they wanted to leave someone off the list, it was normally me because
Oh,
they thought, oh, she won't mind. She's really nice. And, she's not always kind of like the loudest one who's going to complain about it. So I think those parts of like Flo's personality are very similar to mine.
mm,
I'm a bit shy as well. And I hope that my friends would say that I am kind too. And Flo is kind as well.
sure. And one thing that strikes me, it really is kind of a coming of age drama series as much as it is a magical world story. One of the things that struck me is sort of the character development that builds over the series and how we get to know the quartet that Skandar belongs to. So my question is, were you part of a quartet? So where did the idea of quartets come from at school? Were you part of a strong group of four, or was it just a random choice?
Um, and to be honest with you, I think I wished I was. I think I wish I had belonged in a group that was that close knit, but also they complement each other. They're very different from each other, but they sort of stick together always. And I think that the idea of that is something that I read about in books a lot when I was growing up, but I don't think I really had that growing up. I had friends, but not in that kind of like very fierce, very kind of strong way where you're sort of kind of always linked together and it's always the four of you. So I think it probably came from a sort of wanting that to have been the case
Mm,
or wishing that to be the case for other young readers kind of getting into the series rather than it being from kind of personal experience.
sure. Okay, so we're going to move on to some of the questions that were prepared by some of the caliber adults rather than our student friends at Lord Williams. The next question is Skandar himself based on someone that you know?
I think Skandar in the beginning, he was loosely kind of parts of him was inspired by my youngest brother because I've got two younger brothers. Um, and my youngest brother was badly bullied at school because he was very small.
Hmm.
And he was also very smart. And I think that combination kind of meant that people picked on him. And I think so when I was thinking about how my youngest brother had felt being isolated at school, I think I put quite a lot of that into Skandar. And Skandar also comes from where I grew up, so in Kent,
Mm,
in the southeast. So I can kind of use some of that background as well. But then I think because he's the main character, there's quite a lot of me in him as well, and and you sort of, as an author, I always say you're kind of like a thief. You steal things from people you meet or people that you know, and some of the characters kind of I can see bits of people, but none of them are kind of exact copies, if that makes sense. And Skandar himself, I think, is probably the biggest kind of he's made up of the most number of pieces because he is essentially it's his point of view most of the time.
interesting. Um, and So obviously the series touches on elemental magic, and I don't want to sort of give too much away about that. But the question is what would your elemental magic be if you lived in Skandar's world?
So we've got fire, water, air, earth, and then spirit magic as well. And I think if I could choose, I think I would want to be a spirit wielder. And you can actually take an online test to find out, which I wrote, and I took my own tests and I tried to get spirit and failed. I got earth every time. So I think that I earth would be my element if I was in the books, which I'm very happy with. But they all have their kind of strengths and weaknesses, but because spirit is the one the readers discover along the way alongside Skandar, I think that probably feels to me like the one that I would want to be the most because it's the most mysterious and the
Mm,
most kind of layered throughout the series. You find out more about it each book as they grow up.
definitely. And I'm going to turn back to Anna now because she wants to sort of share a little more about herself and how she's enjoyed consuming the Skandar series.
So I'm dyslexic, so I enjoy listening to audiobooks. Could I ask you like a couple questions about those? So, have you listened to the Skandar audiobooks? If so, were they as you expected, or were you surprised by them?
So yes, I have listened to them. I have never read on the page my own books back. I've only ever listened to the audiobooks. So when I've been writing the next book in a series, I always listen to the audiobooks to remind me how the story goes. And I love them. I think they are brilliant. And I was very lucky because I got to go and hear the narrator, David Dawson, reading them in the studio live. And so uh, I I kind of you never know how you're going to feel when people are bringing your characters to life because obviously you have an idea about how they speak and what they're like and how they sound. But I think he's just done the most amazing job. I'm a particular fan of the way he does Bobby Brunner, who is many people's favorite characters, and I think he gave them lots of different accents, which then, because I was writing the rest of the series, I incorporated the accents into the writing.
Mm,
So I heard him, for example, Jamie has an Irish accent in the audiobooks. And so I made sure that Jamie has an Irish accent kind of on the page as well, so that they
mm.
match up. So actually, the audio was kind of like informing the writing of the books of the series later on, which I think is really cool.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think why I love the audiobooks so much. And they're really special to me. And I think that will be the way that I re-listen to my own work
Mm.
always, because I just think he's done an amazing job and um, he's a big fan as well, which I think you can tell
Comes
from the way he
across.
reads them. And when I was watching him, he was even doing some of the kind of magic actions. So when people are raising their palms and stuff, he was doing that within the booth, which I found really, really fun.
Oh, yeah, he definitely gets into character. And as you say, you can hear it in his voice that he's really enjoying it. And yeah, it's a conversation that we have often, being an audiobook charity, is how important it is for the narrator to actually enjoy what they're reading, because you can tell and you can hear it in the tone and the way they the way they deliver it. So that's amazing to know. And I think Anna can relate to Bobby. I think is Bobby your favourite character, Anna?
All of them are like my favourite, but I can relate to where Bobby comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you get to choose the narrator, or was it randomly selected?
So they put a list together of people and they kind of send you a sample of what their voices sound like, or if they've done other things, you can listen to it. And actually, there was another narrator originally that we were going to have for Skandar, and he actually pulled out. So David was he wasn't even on that initial list, but then I heard him speaking and I thought it's just brilliant. So I'm really glad that that ended up being the choice. But it's half my choice, half the publisher's choice, and they know people that will be good at it. and they kind of put together a list. So I guess if I really didn't like how someone sounded, I could say no. But on the whole, it goes really well, and they make a good choice.
Mm.
So I struggle to pronounce some words. So could you help settle a family argument of a word? So is it pronounced Irie or Eerie or something else?
So I would say eerie. That would be how it sounds in my head. I think that's how David says it. But I think Irie is also correct. So I think it's all correct. But when I'm writing it, I would think Erie, not Irie. But I think Irie is more American, maybe,
Mm.
along the pronunciation. So I don't know which side of the argument anyway that was, but I hope that's okay.
I think I had to adjust how I was reading, because I'd been pronouncing it possibly incorrectly, and then we listened to the audiobook and it was like, oh, okay, I may have been mispronouncing that word. But yeah, a neurodivergent household, sometimes we apply our own sort of tone to the to the story. Thanks, Anna. So there are currently 5 books available in the Skandar series. So is that it, or can we expect more?
So luckily there is another book coming later this year. It's called The First Unicorn Rider. So it is a prequel, so an origin story for the island.
Mhm.
And it's releasing on the 6th of November. So it's not that long to wait. So it's set in the world of Skandar. So the island that people have got to know is in it, but it's right at the beginning. So it shows kind of how it was discovered by the first unicorn rider, and how the elemental magic was first discovered by him and the wild unicorn. So it's been a really lovely thing to create for kind of existing fans who I'm sure hopefully want to go back to the island after book 5. And then also it would be fine to kind of listen to it just on its own, if
Mm.
you've never read the Skandar books before, because technically it is like the first one because it's the prequel. So I really like the idea of that because I hopefully it'll help more people find the series as well.
Yeah, interesting that it works as a standalone. But I mean, obviously, we're fans, so we're looking forward to going back to before the time of Skandar Smith. And is there also a special edition coming for World Book Day? I've heard a rumor. Is that something else that might be on the cards?
Yeah, Skandar was chosen as to be one of the World Book Day books in March next year. And so the book that is coming for that is called Skandar and the Secret Element. So it's a whole new story. And it follows one of the characters that is in the Skandar series, called Albert. And it's kind of his journey from wanting to become a unicorn rider and onto the island. So fans will recognize him and it's kind of almost like an origin story for him. But anyone can pick that book up and kind of get into the Skandar series that way as well. It's
Excellent.
the shortest book I've ever written. Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But I hope people like it, and there's lots of kind of little clues for fans in there too.
Excellent. So really we've talked a lot about Skandar, so some of the questions that I've got left to ask you, if you don't mind indulging us with a few more, is just going back to your childhood and kind of exploring what your influences were. So Mrs. Sugden, a librarian at Lord Williams School, asked me to pitch the question to you: what was your favourite book as a child?
Oh, very hard question. But I think that one of probably so my favorite book is probably A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. I found that book at a really important time, I think, in terms of my imagination. And it's got like islands and magic and dragons, and you can kind of see the kind of beginnings of Skandar in there. But I think one of the books I listened to a lot, because I used to listen to audiobooks a lot, was his Dark Materials, because I think there's a full staged version of that.
Mm.
which is kind of like a full cast. So I mean, I listened to that like over and over again, and I think that's got to be up there with my favorite kind of series, the His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. Just because I love books where you can you can sit there and you can listen and you can imagine yourself into the world. I just used to imagine there were like doors to worlds everywhere that I could open, and I still remember those images in my mind, even from when I was 11, 12, now what that kind of looked like. So they were kind of really special to me as well. But on the whole, it was fantasy books for me. I
Hmm.
have to say.
One thing I love about being a parent is actually it gives me permission to discover magical worlds. And obviously, some of the contemporary fiction are great examples of that. And I'd certainly say the Skandar series is great to explore for any of our listeners that haven't already tried the series. So I've read that in an article about yourself that as a child you first wrote about pirates and spies. So do you think that you might write and create another series for children which might include these sorts of characters?
Well, I definitely want to write more series for children. There is, in fact, a pirate in the first Unicorn Rider, which I felt very happy about because I thought that my 13-year-old self would have been absolutely kind of over the moon to know that there was a girl pirate character in a book that I've written. So I suppose that she's kind of made it into a Skandar book, but. I don't know about spies. I've not really thought about that yet, but I do like mysteries, so there's still lots of time.
Definitely. And so obviously, Skandar has been a huge success. And after the first book, the next one came very quickly after, as did the third, fourth, and fifth. So I'm guessing that you haven't really struggled with writer's block when it came to Skandar. Is that true? How easy was it to write the series?
I think I mean this may be controversial to say, but for me, I don't think that writer's block is a thing. I don't think that I think I know some people experience it, but I've not experienced it. I think that I sometimes sit there and stare into space for hours. But someone gave me a piece of advice when I was starting out that was just like you have to be in the chair. You have to be sitting there. And if you're not, then you're going to miss out on the ideas that come. So even if you don't think you can actually write anything that day, like you sit there and you wait until you can write something down. And it might be like 2 lines or it might be 2,000 words. But you have to turn up every day and kind of get into that routine of it so that when the ideas are there, you are there
Mhm.
as well, which I've kind of just always done. And I think I think meeting the fans of Skandar and going to signings and hearing how they enjoy the book, it's very inspiring. And it was part of the reason why I agreed to do 2 books in one year last year, because I knew that it would be a long time to wait. There is an enormous cliffhanger at the end of book 4, which I'm sure Anna remembers.
Yes.
And I didn't want people to have to wait a long time for the last one, and I didn't want them to wait a long time between 3 and 4. So that kind of stopped any kind of blockage because I just had to get it done.
You were under pressure. You'd literally heard from the fans that they were waiting. Yeah.
To wait, it is, and lots of series. A year is a long time when you really love a
Mm.
series, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly true in our house. So as soon as the books were published, you can probably see from the little display that we have in front of our mics, this is Anna's personal collection. And we bought the first book in paperback because we didn't discover it as soon as it was published. But all of the others are in hardback because we couldn't wait. They had to be purchased as soon as they were available. um, So my next question is a bit more of a sort of general one in terms of thinking about contemporary writers and influences on our children. So obviously, fantasy worlds, magic worlds have sort of dominated headlines in terms of best-selling books for children. So we wondered how you feel about being known as perhaps the next J.K. Rowling.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I think that that is what if I ever tell anyone that I'm a children's author, a taxi driver or anyone, that's
Mm.
that's often what they will say to default to. And I think it's because, Harry Potter was such a massive phenomenon at kind of a time where lots of adults can really remember it. But yeah, it's always been a slightly daunting, slightly kind of odd thing because it happened immediately before anyone had read my books at all. And
Mm.
so I was kind of wanting everyone to stop doing that because I wanted them to read the books and see if they liked them first before they're making kind of scary comparisons. So I think it has been a bit of pressure, and I think lots of children's fantasy authors feel pressure about this kind of idea of like being a phenomenon.
Mm.
But I sort of, when the book started coming out and I started going into schools and meeting children, to be honest with you, I kind of forgot all about it because you sort of remember that that's what it's all for.
Mhm.
And it doesn't really matter what people say outside of that.
Yeah, the critics you can put aside, and the fans and the children, obviously, they help to keep you grounded. Because I'm sure you've had children that have told you that, oh, you shouldn't have done that. That, I didn't like it when this character did this. Certainly.
Agree about the cliffhanger at the end of book four. I had young people coming to my signing tables and just kind of saying to me, "Why would you do that?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fair enough. It is a fair enough question. And but I think I kind of loved it because it brings it to life. It doesn't become a thing in theory. It becomes a real thing that people love, and people make fan art, and they kind of draw kind of amazing photos, pictures of like the island and maps, and they write
Mm.
their own stories. And just seeing that, it makes you realize that once you write a book, it doesn't really belong to you anymore. And that's good,
Yeah, sure.
which is nice to kind of realize that at this point.
Well, I love that you shared that obviously the narrator helped you to shape the characters and gave them a voice in a way that perhaps you hadn't imagined when you first introduced them, and how that, helped you to shape them and develop them in the subsequent books. So it just goes to show that it takes on a life of its own, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really interesting actually about the way David reads, so he reads in his own accent when he is narrating. He doesn't kind of read in a kind of like RP accent. Which we did. He asked me whether it was okay for him to read in like his own accent. And I was like, of course, of course. But apparently that's kind of, and I think it's so good. And lots of people have said to me, we really love it because it feels like authentic and it feels
Mm.
warm, or I speak like that, and it's been wonderful to see that. But I didn't realize how uncommon that is,
Mm.
or it
Yeah,
used
it's
to be
refreshing.
anyway. In the old days for kind of children's books on audio, I think it was everyone kind of sounded the same. So I think it's lovely that he sounds like himself.
No, we'd agree. And, I don't know how much you know about Calibre, but obviously we have volunteer narrators that help us bring to life books that commercial publishers haven't decided to put into audio format. So, we're really keen to have volunteers with regional accents that sound, authentic. And, that certainly brings the stories to life in a way that, our listeners enjoy. So, yeah, you're preaching to the converted. So I just wanted to turn to the fact that we've heard that you're starting to write something for adults. Our question is, can you tell us a little bit about that book that's not a Skandar book aimed at a different audience? And then the second part of the question is, do you think that you'll go back to writing more children's or young adult fiction at some point?
So my first adult novel is called Timeless, and it is time traveling assassins. So it's set in a Cambridge frozen out of time in the 1920s, and then crews of timeless soldiers travel in and out of time. So they go forward and they go back in time, and they take out targets who they are told to by the faculty who control them. And so it's been very different from Skandar. There's also romance in it, and it's been so much fun to write. But I think it still has the kind of, in Skandar, the characters are so important in terms of relationships between each other. And I think that Timeless will have that as well, because I think it's impossible for me to write a book where that is not the is, because that is my favorite part of it. And it also has lots of action scenes, which is common across both series. So that will be a series as well, the
Mhm.
Timeless series. But I'm certain I will be writing more books for young people. I can't say too much about it at the moment, but it's definitely not a turn away from that. It's more an
Mhm.
addition to what I've been doing already. And so yeah, I'm excited to write more
Mm.
books, and particularly for the age group I have been doing it for, because it's such an important age in terms of loving stories and finding things that you love to really kind of get you hooked on stories. And so I'm never going to turn away from that.
Oh, that's really good news. I've got one happy 12-year-old sat next to me because yeah, you sometimes struggle to find books that really you know, light up that passion in you. But certainly watching her read a Skandar book, so a child with dyslexia that will pore over the pages of a print book and literally get through it in 2 or 3 days, because she's just loving it so much. It's really good to see as a parent. So and obviously we're grateful that your titles are in our collection for Calibre members, because many children can't enjoy the printed word. So it's fantastic that they can discover them through audio as well. So I'm coming to the end of sort of my list of questions, really, but I just wanted to wrap up by sort of returning to Skandar, and this one this one's a bit of a funny question. So our question here is: can you draw a unicorn? And did you ever consider doing your own illustrations, or did you just decide to leave it to the professional illustrators?
So I cannot draw a unicorn at all. I'm bad at drawing horses, and then if you add in the wings and the horn as well, it's just an absolute nightmare. So I can't, and I'm not very good at drawing on the whole. So I love seeing when children draw art, because I just don't understand how they've done it, because I'm terrible. I've never been gifted artist. So no, I've never been tempted to do my own covers. I think one of the lovely things about the first Unicorn Rider that's coming out is that book is the first one that's got interior illustrations as well. So it has a kind of panels of illustrations for the island, and again, I could never have done them, but that's very kind of them to assume that I might have been able to.
And then our final question is: do you believe in magic?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think for me, I think that, I mean, writing is a magical thing to do. I meet people who talk about my characters like they're real people, and that's pretty magical to me. And they actually influence people's lives, and they make them feel better about something that might have happened, or they see themselves reflected in a character. And I think if that's not magic, I don't really know what is.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to sum it up. So I want to give Anna a chance if she's got any burning questions that we've missed. Is there anything that springs to mind?
Yes. So with your Skandar series, um, what was your main idea of like starting it off, really?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to start books. I think that um, people who are interested in writing as well talk to me about it. That like where did you start the story? And what actually happened was I created like the world. I had like a great time creating this island of unicorns and the characters. So Flo, Skandar, Bobby, and Mitchell were all there from the very beginning, and the elemental magic. So I created all those things. I wrote a whole book, and then I got to the end and I realized nothing really happened. So there was no villain, and there was kind of nothing that really drove you through the story at all. And then I read something that was some advice about how you have to find your way through like the forest. So
Mhm.
I'd created a whole forest, I'd got massively lost in it, and then I needed to find the path on the way through. So that was when I kind of had to go back to the beginning and kind of decide what Skandar's journey was going to be within that world.
Mm.
So it was quite a strange process, and not one I would necessarily recommend. But it did mean that at the beginning I had all of this whole world, and lots of the stuff didn't even make it into the first book. So there are things that come in later. So, for example, the bards and the song school, that actually we don't really see that place until the fourth book, but that was in that initial draft. So I could just go back to it and pick
Mhm.
things up from that kind of huge like imagination exercise. And in my big forest of ideas, and kind of come back to it. And it always meant that the books hopefully felt like they had a kind of core idea. So I didn't get too
Mm.
lost adding kind of random magical things in, because they'd all come from this kind of like central idea at the start. So I started off by having like lots of fun, which I think you should always do when you're going to write a fantasy series. But you then do need to have a plot after that, I have found, because otherwise readers get lost in the woods as well.
Sure. No, I mean, I'd say that you've got the balance right between obviously really um, allowing us as readers to get to know the characters and see them develop over the series, but also, each book as a standalone is super exciting. There's always drama and action and and romance and humour so it really combines all those elements really well. So congratulations from having your first read through and thinking, oh my gosh, nothing really happens. Obviously, what a transformation. Yeah, you've crammed a lot in. And so I did say I had a final question, but one other thought occurs to me. I've heard that someone's purchased the film rights. So is that something that's imminent? Is it likely that we'll see Skandar at the cinemas? Is it a Netflix drama? What's on the cards from a film perspective?
So Sony Pictures acquired the film rights. So it's the film of the first book, Skandar and the Unicorn Thief, is in development with them.
Mhm.
There's a script that's been through several drafts that I've been helping with. I've not written it. It's written by John Croker, who's
Mhm.
brilliant. And so I've been kind of working with him on it. So we're at a point where the script is kind of agreed and everyone's happy with it. So we hopefully will have a director on board, and then we can start casting it. So we haven't done that yet, but it will be cinema release live action film. And hopefully, if people like it and they go to see it, then they would like to make all the books into films as well. They have that kind of ability,
Oh,
within the
wow.
kind of
Yeah.
agreement that we have. So that would be so exciting. I would love it for the fans of the books, and I think it would be amazing to see the unicorns on the big screen.
But somewhat frightening, I think. I might be hiding behind a cushion or if I'm at the cinema, behind my hands.
If they're in 3D, which I think is something we've been discussing. So
Wow. Okay, so that really was my final question. So that just leaves for me to sort of wrap up our interview today. So thank you so much for joining us today, Annabelle. We've really appreciated it. And I know that this has, made the wish list for Anna is to sort of meet one of her author heroes. So we hope that today's interview, will be listened to lots of our Calibre members and hopefully more widely at Lord William's School, who obviously had a guest appearance today. And we hope that we've encouraged our listeners to start their own reading adventure, discovering your books. And obviously just to say that if you are listening to this and you are a Calibre member, that you can borrow the Skandar series from our collection. And if you want to find out more about Annabelle and her writing, then you can visit her website. So that's afsteadman.com. So that just leaves for me to say a huge thank you. So thank you so much for joining us today. We've really enjoyed it. And we can't wait to see what the reaction is when the students at Lord Williams and all the Calibre members get to listen to this interview. I think it's going to create lots and lots of interest, both in the books and in the audiobooks too. So thank you very much.
thank you.